Welcome to this episode of the DGD Podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds. Today we've got Harrison Reno from Top Dog Talks. Welcome to the show, Harrison. How are you doing, sir?
Thank you, Rob, for having me today on the show, man. It's a pleasure to always be with you, man. Looking forward to getting going and talking some ball.
Yeah, I know it's kind of last minute. Obviously, some changes to the show time and things like that, but we are here and it is all good. With that being said, though, guys, just keep in mind the show is sponsored by La Terrain. Use code DGD at checkout to get 10% off of your purchase site wide. Also, join our Discord today at the link below, discord.com/invite/Bones Brigade, and become a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/DGD Podcast. Now, with that being said, Harrison, a lot of stuff going on over the weekend and a lot of stuff to talk about, right? You got the Under Armour camp in Atlanta that happened yesterday, and there's going to be some interesting notes there. Obviously, recently over the weekend and into late last week, I think it was more to a couple of decommitments as well from the 2023 class. So we're going to talk about that. And Georgia finally has their offensive line coach. Obviously, just waiting for it to be official. And Coach, Searles. I think hopefully I didn't butcher that name. So there's a lot to talk about. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that right there. Well, first we'll talk about the camp in Atlanta, right? Look, this, going to Atlanta, there's a ton of talent in the Southeast. So there's always going to be just a ton of talent wherever you go, especially Atlanta. Didn't disappoint one bit. Obviously, I think the highlight of the camp was probably Caleb Downs, right? Number one safety in the country. But look, there's some kids that really shown out. Bo Hughley, McElderry, both commits for Georgia now. Both of them had a really good camp. Obviously, you look at what King Edward, I think it's King Joseph from Buford, also had a really good camp. I think he was like the MVP of the whole thing. Very good camp there. I'm going to give a shout out to my guy, Jamal Jarrett, though. My man dominated. Obviously, I've been saying on the record for a while, he's been underrated. Recruiting services are sleeping on him. Yeah, you can't do that anymore. You just can't do it. Really impressive, just bullying centers and, guards and things like that. One D-line MVP camp. So hats off to my man, Jamal. Harrison, what were your takeaways from the camp at Atlanta yesterday?
Pretty much like you said, I think no one can ignore Jamal Jarrett anymore. No one can ignore a lot of the North Carolina talent that is coming out of North Carolina. Grimsley in particular, I think, I've been following everything you've been covering over there at Grimsley. And, they got a lot of talent. I think that's obvious. They have a chance to run it back in the state title. I don't know how many state titles they have now in the state of North Carolina, but it is getting up there. I can tell you that. They won it about, 2 years ago now? So, that was with Travis Shaw. And now there's Jamal Jarrett. You go from one 5-star prospect to another one who is going to be a 5-star prospect at some point if he is not already. I mean, he's 6'5", 300 what?
So yesterday Jamal clocked in at 6'5", 339.
Whew. And to put that in perspective, I think Jordan Davis was around the 340s as a true freshman.
So these comparisons to Jordan Davis guys are legit. All right. Watching some of the highlights and things like that. Look, he's, I've always wondered what it would be like to see Jamal go through and go against some elite talent. And it showed yesterday, going 3 for 1 in his one-on-one reps, D-line MVP. They just don't hand that shit out to you. So you've got to earn that, right? So, looking at that right there, look, his recruitment changed yesterday. And obviously it's going to be a big deal now. And I wouldn't be surprised to see A&M or, other schools that kind of like laid low on it. Yeah, they're not going to do that anymore. They're just not going to. And if they do, they're stupid in their own right. I'm just saying.
Most certainly. I think, Alabama's going to get in on there if they haven't already. I mean, most of the SEC, once one SEC offer comes in, most of them start flooding in. It's just kind of the trend I've seen over the last few years. But I think, like you said, everyone's going to start getting in on Jamal Jarrett. I mean, the man is a freak. I mean, you're talking 6'5", 300, near 340 pounds. Definitely has the height and frame to play in the SEC, has the height and frame to play anywhere in the country. He can go to the NFL with that height and weight and go play and be fine. I have not watched much of him on tape, not as much as you have and some others people have, but, just from hearing from what everyone's saying about him, he has talent. He is not just someone that is going to go into the game and sit, in the middle of that defense and just take up space. No, he is going to stop your opponent's run game, and he will get after the passer. I think, that's something that everyone's going to be evaluating. Trey Scott, Georgia's D-line coach in particular, is, how good is he as a pass rusher? Where do his strengths lie, and where are his potential weaknesses? Obviously, with Jordan Davis, the big question was, how long can you play him? How many snaps can he play a game before you gas him out?
Right now, obviously look at Jordan Davis. We kind of know Jordan Davis to be that kind of two down guy, right? First down, second down. What I saw yesterday from Jamal has all the potential to be 3-down player at his size, which is just even scarier. So look, obviously, people want to assume Jordan Davis is just as mauler when it comes to the run game, and rightfully so. And Jamal is the same way. And right, looking at this season, looking forward to this season. Look, I had Coach Rigsby on here, defensive coordinator for Grimsley. We're kind of both on board here. That line is loaded. I know last year Grimsley had Travis. They had Tamori Thompson, and that was a really good line. But what I've heard and what I'm expecting, it's going to be dangerous. And obviously, we know. I know Jamal in regards to what he's able to do. But when he was doing it against elite talent, it just kind of solidifies, reconfirms things. So, look, Jamal, hats off, sir. Had a great damn day yesterday. But now, look, obviously Jamal had a good day, and there was a lot of other good ones too. It just shows you, right? It just shows you the elite talent in the Southeast. And kind of just moving forward here, I know there was another guy that you actually have some kind of ties and proximity with, and that's KJ Sampson. Out of New Bern. And with that being said, obviously releases his top 5 updated, takes Georgia out, puts Florida State. What do you kind of know about that? What are your expectations there moving forward? Do you expect maybe, Georgia to kind of try to find a way back in, or what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know what Georgia's going to do in regards to KJ Sampson. Obviously, he is one of the most talented, not only defensive linemen in the state of North Carolina, but also in the country. I think in his 2023 class, he's going to be heavily recruited. I think you've already seen Alabama, Ohio State, Florida State. Trying to remember off the top of my head, I think South Carolina is potentially. Clemson's in that top 5, I believe. There's some really good schools in that top 5, a lot of top talent, a lot of, the best coaches in the world are going after him. So, to be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if Georgia tries to get back in on that one. I don't know how much communication there is going on there, to be frank with you. So we'll see. Obviously Georgia took. I think KJ is going to fit in great at the next level. I think he's a 3 tech, which makes him kind of different from a guy like Jamal Jarrett, who is your true nose tackle. Straight up Jordan Davis replacement, as people said with Bear Alexander. From this past recruiting class, KJ is more in the mold, I think, of a Devontae Wyatt. Physical at the defensive, physical at the point of attack. He's going to be quick. He's going to get in the backfield. He can stop the run and get after the passer. I'm excited to see him grow and excited to see where all he goes over this next year.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of curious about that too, because obviously that's kind of a sting for Georgia recruiting, especially within the state. But at the same time, I think where Georgia is as a program in regards to recruiting, you look at it in a sense of, well, that's just one that might miss. We might just kind of be lessening the interest there and then focusing somewhere else and maybe even someone better. All right, that's the typical thought behind Georgia recruiting at this point. So obviously, looking into that right there. Obviously, with current interest and things like that, and look, I'm telling you now, Jamal loving some Georgia, and that's fine. That's completely fine. I want him to be, and obviously, it's you can't get them all, right? With that being said, obviously we can't get them all, and we lost 2 commits, Kai and Lee, and DeQuavius Sori in order, actually. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I may be wrong, but I think there's some ties with the Fran Brown hire that kind of changed Kyan's thought process behind his recruitment, made him want to reassess. And look, and every kid has their own reasoning for that, and that's fine. You ever have to respect it, I do. But what does that mean for Georgia when it comes down to obviously losing a defensive back like Kyan Lee? Because I love Kyan Lee's take because he's a thumper. Kid can hit and can cover. Right? He's got the measurables that I think Kirby likes, but he can hit, come down and hit. What does Georgia look at? Like, and obviously everybody wants to focus on this past year's DB haul. At the same time, you do have to understand that you kind of need to keep that keep it full, right? Keep the cupboard full in that recruiting in that area. So, what is Georgia? Do they look elsewhere? I know we've got time, but at the same time, and honestly, there's some elite guys. 2023 was a class where you're going to get these elite DBs. It's just loaded. And obviously with DeQuavius, right, losing a receiver, that's probably the spot that Georgia needs the most help with. And you just lose a top 100 receiver. So the question for me now I'll look at it as, it's not that I don't trust Coach McClendon, but what is he going to do? What has he got up his sleeve? Because I just feel like it's coming. Knowing his recruiting prowess back in the day with recruiting the running backs when he was a running backs coach and everything, I know he can do it. He's an elite recruiter. I need to see it. Does that mean that there's something bigger in the pot coming up that we don't know yet? Who knows, right? But I think those are the questions that I think me and probably a lot of the other fan base are wondering too, because those two positions are ones that we kind of have questions about, right? Whether it be depth or, just numbers, right? So I think that's key there. So losing a top 100 guy in a position of need is scary. Right? It's scary. It concerns you. And like I said, rightfully so. But look, the 2023 cycle, there's a lot of receivers. And there's one in North Carolina here up near Hickory Ridge, and that's Christian Hamilton for the 23 class. I think the kid would be a really good fit for Georgia. That's a name to keep on the radar there. But look, there's a lot of talent. And you know what? At the end of the day, I trust Kirby, Coach B-Mac, to get the job done until they prove to me otherwise that it just doesn't happen. But what are your thoughts on those two commits, or decommits, I should say? Sorry.
With those two, obviously with recruiting, you're never officially out of the boat until signing day. So I think there is a chance that Georgia gets in on both of them. When you look at both of the decommits and look at the time frame of both of them, obviously Kyan Lee's came right after the hire of Georgia's new defensive back coach, Fran Brown. And then you look at DeQuavius Sori a few weeks after the hiring of Brian McClendon. He decides to step away from his commitment to Georgia and look elsewhere for the time being. I'm not too worried about either of them. Because I know, when you lose a position coach, there is a chance that you will see a few guys decommit and reevaluate their commitment. But if Georgia wants them, they will continue to recruit them. Kyan Lee, like you said, he is a good football player. And I think he fits the frame and fits the mold of a Georgia defensive back. The only question I think people will have of him, and it's the height. But as we know, as you look at, De'Aaron Kendrick is not 6 foot. After research, and I think he's like 5'11", maybe 6 foot in cleats, but I think he's about 5'11". And we all saw what he did. Yeah, I mean, he's, and he's still going to be a top 60 pick in the NFL draft, maybe goes first round, depending on, what organization takes him. I could definitely see him going late first round. So, height is not an issue if you can cover a receiver like De'Aaron Kendrick did, or like Kamari Lassiter is going to do, if he is ultimately the guy to step up at defensive back. So,
Kamari Lassiter's about to be a dog if y'all ain't heard.
Oh, I mean, just go watch, the plays he made last year as a true freshman. Granted, it was in a reserve role, but you can see there was a lot of promise there. Obviously, he gained enough trust to play in some games late last year. So, Georgia has a lot of DBs, like you said. They just got a huge DB recruiting class, one of the best in school history. So, obviously, with that comes more competition for the 2023 class as to, spots in that DB room. I'm not too worried about Kane Lee. I think, if he wants to go to Georgia and Georgia wants him, they will go back after him. And I think this could just be a transition period for both of them as they start to look at their other options. For DeQuavius Story, obviously, there are some ties to Georgia's roster. One being Xavier Story, if I'm correct. They are related, if I remember. So, they are cousins. So I'm not too worried about that one either. Obviously, it comes a few weeks after the hiring of the new receiver coach and the loss of Brian McClendon. I think, despite the criticism that that Cortez Hankton, got as Georgia's receiving coach for, maybe not going and getting a Jaden Hazelwood or a Luther Burden. Cortez Hankton was a good recruiter. Despite what anyone says, despite
No
all the
doubt.
criticism, he
No
was a
doubt.
good recruiter. I mean, you look at George Pickens, Jermaine Burton, those two guys alone, Lad McConkey, he found those guys. He got them to Georgia. Obviously, Lad McConkey being a stunning find and a huge breakout star from the moment he set foot on campus. So, I think that was coming down the pipe when you lose a position coach. We could see it at offensive line. Maybe we lose a commitment. Maybe we don't. Speaking about offensive line right now, Bo Hughley, one of the top offensive linemen in Georgia's current 2023 recruited class, did take to Twitter to announce that he is is still, I think he said 100% still a dog after the loss of Matt Luke.
Basically reaffirming it, yeah.
So, we'll see how he reacts to the hiring of Stacey Searle, something that we will talk about a little bit later on the show from what you said. So I think right now, I don't think there's much to worry about for Georgia's recruiting class. Like you said, Kirby Smart and all those guys will get it done. I think this is just a transition period for the recruiting class where they're going to step back, get to know these new position coaches, and get to know some other schools that they may have overlooked because they wanted to go to Georgia. So I'm not too worried about it overall. I think it will work itself out.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, basically, you look at 4 words, and I think, most fans need to try to do this, if not already doing it, and that's in Kirby we trust. And look, people can question this and question that, but I'm telling you right now, for me, I'm looking at it in the sense of, hey, he won you a national title. He knows what the hell he's doing. Trust it until proven otherwise, right? Like, just trust it. And obviously, that's another thing that we're going to talk about, and we'll go ahead and honestly just talk about it right now. And that's the new offensive line coach. Excuse me, Stacey Searle, right? Offensive line coach from North Carolina previously. Look, he has history at Georgia, right? He has history here, coaching under Margaret Richt as well. And, so, kind of talking about this in Kirby we trust, right? Right now, there's a lot of skepticism from the initial, backlash in the hiring, right? Like the initial wave of, how to take it, where some people were okay with it. I think obviously looking at the timing of it, it needed to be done, and it's done. But then you got people worried, like looking at North Carolina and saying, look at how his offense was. And it's like, pump the brakes, Chief, pump the brakes. You look at, there's different factors here, right? Different scheme that they ran, different talent levels, things like that. And what he's coming into is going to be a lot different too. So, what you saw last year, I've heard takes like, oh, they ruined, his offensive line ruined Sam Howell's draft stock. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. Like, that makes no sense. So you sit there, obviously you look at the tape and look, North Carolina's offensive line was kind of bad. Don't get me wrong. The statistics don't really lie. You can't lie with statistics for the most part. So, they allowed a lot of sacks. But if my man Brooks, Brooks Austin, shout out Brooks Austin, showed up perfectly earlier today and was like, missed assignments, right? Different things like this. He's a D1 offensive line coach. You know that it's going to be instilled. It's just a matter of execution, and they did not execute whatsoever. So, looking into that in that regard, the stats are kind of misleading. And, when you get him around the talent that Georgia has in the offensive line room, different scheme, right? All these things like this, there's the potential for change in a positive way and really an extremely positive way for in regards to the potential. So, what were your thoughts initially on this hire?
Initially I was kind of shocked. I mean, it was a name that kind of came into the mix late into the process. I think the first time I saw his name pop up was either this morning or sometime late last night. That Georgia was looking into hiring him. So, and I think that's par for the take. I think, we all should have been immediately keyed in on the fact that, hey, it is unusual for any, position coach that Georgia's interviewing to have their name leaked, that they're getting looked at, that, there's so much attention around them that, it looks like Georgia, that is going to be the choice. It's not confirmed, but it looks like it's going to be a choice. I think we should have keyed in on that. Obviously, the favorite, as in, like, if I had to predict back after Matt Luke left, I would have probably predicted Will Friend, just because there are, like Stacey Sterles, past ties to the Georgia program, working back. Both worked under Coach Rick and worked with Coach Bobo. So, there's some ties there, but, honestly, it's not a shock that, this name kind of came out of nowhere within the last 24 hours. So my initial thoughts on him, there's experience there. We've seen what he's done in the past. We saw what he's done at North Carolina. He was with Georgia from 2007, 2010, left Georgia for the University of Texas. I don't remember too much of him back at the University of Texas, so I can't really tell you how well he did. I can just tell you when he was at Texas, it was towards the end of Mac Brown's reign. In fact, that I believe he was the coach right up until Mac Brown ended up resigning from that post at Texas. So, I mean, like you said, he's going into a room that has more talent than any position group he's probably coached in the last 5 to 10 years. I don't think any past position group he's coached is as talented as this one is going to be. The biggest challenge for him will be holding on to those guys and getting those guys to compete and not enter the transfer portal. And then you come to the fact that he has to get a recruiting class. And luckily for him, it's almost the beginning of March, and he has until next January to sign off on that recruiting class. So it's prime time for him to come into Georgia, get in here right before spring, meet the guys, and then start recruiting your tail off, because just as well as I do, that's what it takes if you want to coach any position or any job, at the University of Georgia.
No doubt about that. Looking into it, right? I think, like you said, to end the point here, you look at the timing of this, right? And obviously Georgia had to get something done. March is obviously the dead period start or ends tomorrow. So now you have guys visiting campus at all times, right? The whole month. I wouldn't be surprised to see a kid there almost every day, almost. And obviously big weekends. With that being said, the uncertainty of not having a coach, that negatively impacts recruiting. And how Kirby values recruiting. He's going to make sure that things are set up. And, also to your point as well, there's a lot of guys that were named potential, right? Like Alex Atkins, things like that. How many of them sat there and used this job title position or this job search as a way to get a promotion and more money and things like this? They use it to boost it. They boost themselves. That's what you see. That's what Georgia does now, right? If you're looking in the search for, if your name is thrown out there, either you're about to get paid from your current employer or you're actually coming to Georgia. And kind of shows, right? It just kind of shows. But with that being said, though, like you said, it's a matter of keeping these guys together, because there's a ton of talent right now. A ton of talent on this Georgia roster in regard, especially offensive line. Keeping them together is going to be the hardest part of this new job. It's just going to be. We know he gets guys into the league as well, right? So track record for NFL talent, I was going to say like 20 to 30 guys or something like that had to have over his time. You know what I mean? So he gets guys to the league. That's a recruiting pitch. You people might negatively recruit against last year, but hey, we're not North Carolina, fam. We're Georgia. We're the fucking Georgia Bulldogs. Different situation. You're right.
I got the exact number for you.
Said, obviously I think it's going to be key here to see what current offensive linemen in the Georgia program say and what recruits say, right? I think initially the hire is a good hire, right? Now we'll obviously see, and the fact that once he's there at Georgia and able to recruit and get in these kids, face to face, that'll be telling. right? That'll be completely telling. Obviously, with that being said, though, thinking about the recruiting, obviously tying back in, do you think Georgia looks at different recruit like because we got McElderry, we've got Bo Hughley. I'm thinking we take several more offensive linemen in this cycle because I think this cycle is actually a lot deeper than for sure last year, right? Last year's was kind of boo boo compared to this year for sure. Are your expectations with offensive line recruiting? Are you expecting us to take more of those guys, or what are your thoughts there initially?
I think we spoke about this sometime last year, talking about offensive line recruiting and all that. And like you mentioned, last year was a down year, I would say, for offensive line as a whole. Especially in the class, and most of it. I'm sorry, Brooks, but I'm gonna have to get on your lawn here for a minute. Most of it's because of the COVID year, and the lockdown. So, the skills guys, they got faster. The offensive line got slower because it's one of those positions, one of the few positions in football where it's not a 7v7 position. You can't do much work, on your own. Yes, you can work on footwork. Yes, you can, can't really work on your hands other than maybe I think Aaron Donald does karate or something like that where he works on a set. Now, granted, that's a defensive lineman, but offensive lineman may be able to do the same thing. Yeah. So, and I think that's the big part of it. So, how does it compare to the 2023 class? Obviously, these guys have had going to have one more year of high school play, one more year of work before they get to the college level. So yeah, I expect a rebound. Now, as to how many Georgia takes in that offensive line room, I think Georgia took 3 to 4 guys this past year.
I believe so, yeah.
And they're all, I would say, underrated, maybe underrated. They were all lower rated guys. They weren't.
Well, I think outside of Ernest Green, outside of Ernest Green, I think you're looking at guys that might be underrated or or lower rated for sure. Because I know what Jacob Hood,
3-star. I think
so you got Jacob Hood, you had Ernest Green. Oh my
Bobo.
goodness! But Drew Bobo, yeah.
So, Stocks. I think they took 4, right? 4 or 5.
Yeah, I think so.
And they're all lower rated. They, look, I think you've seen it as well as I've seen it. Fans were like, "Oh, why is Georgia not recruiting all these dang 5-stars this year?" If they trust their evaluation in a 3-star more than they do in a 5-star, let them take the 3-star. Why take some 5-star when you can get a Lad McConkey? If you have if you evaluated a 5-star and you don't like the evaluation, don't like him as a player, and then you have another 3-star that you love the evaluation of, why not take the 3-star that you're more comfortable with evaluation-wise? So I think that's what Georgia looked for in their offensive line last year, and it's going to be the same thing this year, except I think, like you said, they will rebound. As to how many they take, you're going to have to replace Warren McClendon. According to some, he is a first-round pick in the NFL draft. When he,
I could see it. Honestly, I could see it.
And who else? I think he's the only major starter that off the top of my head that
you might have to worry about Xavier Truss, but that, like you said, that's beyond your starters. Like, I think what we're looking at right here, if based off of my assumption, if I were to look at it today and what I thought would fit the best, if you have, let's see, if I go 5 across, I think you go Broderick. I'd love Mims. I'd love Mims at right tackle, but left guard would be a wild pick. But we've got so many guards that I think you can get away with it.
Oh yeah, and Tate Ratledge didn't even play a game last year.
He played 2 downs before he got hurt.
Yeah,
and was out for the season. So
and he was starting, which is crazy. I think he's a redshirt freshman or he's either a rising sophomore.
Yeah.
I don't remember if they redshirted him or not. But anyways, the point stands. Georgia's loaded. They got a lot of guards. You're trying to replace your depth at tackle just because you're losing Jamari Sawyer this year. You're about to lose Warren McClendon. So I expect them to take a tackle or 2 this class. I think probably 2 to start preparing.
Make sure you keep Bo Hughley. I think that'll be key there.
He will be a big one.
Look, McElderry might be a 3-star, but I'm telling you right now, he's going to fit just fine in the interior of that offensive line. Because that dude is mean. And that's that energy you want on that offensive line. You want a mauler and you want a mean son of a bitch. That's what you get with McElderry. And
And
you
it's
get him at
crazy.
340? Come on.
It's crazy because you look at the past few linemen to go to the NFL. I think Solomon McKinley was a 3-star. I don't remember. I think Ben Cleveland may have been a 4-star. Who else? Justin Schaefer was a 3-star. So there is a history of developing these 3-star offensive guards into big time players and NFL talent. So, taking a 3-star across the offensive line, if they trust the evaluation, then everyone else should too. So, I think your take, maybe a couple guards. Now, I mean, right now we're talking about something where we don't know who's entering the portal. We haven't even hit spring ball. So, there could be even more gaps in that room where Georgia's taken a third offensive tackle and maybe 2 guards. So they will. I think Warren Erickson's also a senior this year. So you're losing him as well. I don't know if he'll start this year. Most likely will, but depends on how Georgia wants to shape its line at guard.
Yeah, and looking at we're just talking about the offensive side of the ball too. Just imagine on the defense, right? Because looking on the defense, having to replace, obviously this year we're having to replace Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt, and honestly, this 2022 cycle did that and then some, right? Replacing guys, inputting, Michael, Kristen Miller. So your defense, and the Marvin Jones Jr., which I cannot wait to see that kid play off the edge. Cannot wait. Looking at that right there, obviously this upcoming year, now you're going to have to sit there and replace Nolan Smith. You're going to have to sit there and probably, look around at Tamara Walthour, different guys like that right there. Zion Logue will probably, I think Zion Logue might be able to be, if he has a good year, I think he can leave if needed, or if he chooses to, I believe.
I think I checked yesterday. He is a junior.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, and I think he looked good last year when he was playing in more of a reserve role. Although he did get some snaps with that first team unit playing next to I think it was Jalen Carter at times last year. So,
Yeah.
and I expect those two to be the 1-2 punch on the interior. But don't count out a guy like Warren Brinson.
Warren
Maybe
Brinson could be set up for a really, really good year this year. I
Nazir
think if
Stackhouse.
I had to choose though, beside Jalen Carter, I think you give me Zion Logue, or a lot of people sleep on Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. If he's healthy, kid's gonna be a baller. You just got to get him on the field.
And I think I think he's gonna play 3-tech. Ingram Dawkins. I don't remember
Yeah,
exactly
he's a
what he
good
was
boy.
looking like out of high
He would
school.
probably play. He would probably fit in just fine with that Devontae Wyatt in that area. So yeah.
And Georgia looks really good at 3-tech, I might say, because I mean, you look at their past recruiting class. A lot of those defensive tackles they took are guys that can play 3-tech. I think you got 2 guys that are probably going to play nose tackle for you. I think Bear Alexander can play nose tackle and 3-tech, so there's some versatility there. Question with Bear Alexander is, when do you get him back for fall camp? He had that shoulder surgery, and I think he's supposed to miss all of the spring, if not miss most of it. So you won't get him during the spring, most likely. So you guys, that's going to be some lost time you got to make up for. But Georgia's loaded on the defensive line talent-wise. Now it's just about getting those guys come out and come play. There are some questions, but I think Trey Scott, after this past year, he will get those questions sorted out.
Oh, no doubt about that. I think you look at, obviously what we've got this upcoming year is Jalen Carter will be a junior, or no, sophomore.
Junior.
Junior, yeah. So okay, so excuse me. Wow, I'm all over the place.
It's all
So you lose.
well. It's crazy with the redshirt and the COVID rule. You're like,
It's so confusing, man. But at the same time, because I mean, technically he has an extra year, obviously, so he'll be a junior. With that being said, after this year, you really lose that true nose tackle, right? But this is why the 2023 cycle is so important. You sit there, you have the potential to pick up a guy like Jamal Jarrett that can literally fill right in with that with that nose tackle, the true nose tackle, right? Like a true up zero tech, right in your face nose tackle. What would it be like getting a guy like, Jamal, and then pairing him with, I don't know whether you wanted to look at Bear Alexander at the 3, or Tyrion Ingram Dawkins at the 3. Hell, maybe even a guy like Caden McDonald, if you pick him up from this class, right? Or Xavier McLeod, another guy that's going to have a fucking good 2023. Kid's going to be shooting up rankings and stuff too. But you also have guys like, on the edge. Like, hypothetically, what would your line look like? Let's do this. Marvin Jones, Kristen Miller, Bear Alexander, Jamal Jarrett. I'd be fucking sitting there looking at that like, oh my God. I'd be freaking out. That's just too much size, too much athleticism, too much speed, especially on the ends. Ooh. Ooh. So Trey
And
Scott, you got your work cut in, but I trust you, man. I trust you. If you
and
do,
that's the thing. You know? I mean, you just named off, some of the top talents over the last recruiting class alone. Christian Miller, Michael Williams,
Michael, yeah,
Marvin
put Michael
Jones.
in over Christian. Who knows?
And honestly, from what I've been reading and hearing on Michael is he's Trayvon Walker. That's what everyone's comparing him to. He has a slimmer build, makes him look like an outside linebacker. I mean, I saw a photo of him a few months ago. Dude did not look like a defensive end. He looked like a outside linebacker, which was crazy. So I don't know if they'll put weight on him and make him kind of play more of a Trayvon Walker role, or they're going to keep him where he is right now, maybe add some more muscle and bring him off the edge as an outside linebacker, 3-4 outside linebacker, which is basically a defensive end in the end. They're both edge rushers. It's just about where they position you and what they scheme you up to do because, no one can tell us that Trayvon Walker's playing the same role as a Nolan Smith. I mean, you're designing Georgia last year was designing their pass rush for guys like Adam Anderson when he was with the team, designing it for, a Devontae Wyatt at times, because Jordan Davis obviously draws the double team depending on what set you're in. So, I'm really excited to see Georgia try and scheme these one-on-one guys with some of their young guys. It's really going to be exciting to watch this defensive line grow and develop because they're only going to get better as the year goes on.
This is the perfect or I guess you could say exclamation point when I'm driving the statement home that Georgia is reloading, not rebuilding. Like, just listen to all these guys, possible schemes, possible plan position. It's just insane. The depth is just insane right now. Obviously, looking at guys like Kristen, looking at guys like Michael that haven't touched the field yet, right? We're just going off of potential, but potential matters at some point too, right? I would rather. So, like, you put them in, get them on the field. Look, obviously, we know this. If you're good enough, you're going to play. Period. Right? Period. You're going to play.
Certainly.
As Patrick Oliver says, sorry I'm late. Crazy day. I understand.
You're gonna need a pass to get counted as present today, Patrick.
Uh-oh. Tardy. No, so look, obviously with the defense, from a recruiting standpoint, the 2023 class, it's deep. It really is, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And honestly, looking on the offensive side, I think you can rebuild your offensive line class in this class. There's a lot of good talent there. You could also look at, receiver. I think receiver is the spot that we have to take advantage of, capitalize on. If not, I really don't know what's going to happen because, at some point, you can, but I don't know how long I want to bank on just truly developing guys. Give me some guys with elite talent and let them shine, a la Pickens. Just saying. Like, if you're looking at one position, let's just go ahead and narrow this down. If you're looking at one position in this recruiting class that Georgia has to hit and capitalize on, what is it?
I agree. I think it's receiver. It's I haven't looked too much into receivers in this 2023 class, so I'm curious to see what these guys are looking like, and where is the next George Pickens? Where is a guy like Jermaine Burton, someone who is a high 4-star that everyone is comparing to an Odell Beckham Jr. or Jarvis Landry?
Yeah.
Find those guys and get them to Georgia. Because like you said, Georgia does not want to be like the University of Florida under Dan Mullen, where you're waiting 3 to 4 years before you compete for the SEC East. Georgia wants to win national titles. You need to go out and get a Jalen Waddle, a Henry Ruggs, a Devontae Smith at least every 2 years. Get those guys in and really, build up the reputation of Georgia wide receiving of the wide receiving core, because right now I think the only thing that's holding them back from being able to get those guys is the fact that they don't have the consistency of building those guys up like Alabama and Ohio State. So I think, the bright side of having Tom Lunkin for another year is you're going to continue to transform the reputation of Georgia's offense, and you will show to these guys like, hey, you come to Georgia, we will throw you the ball. Look what Brock Bowers did as a tight end. Look what George Pickens did as a freshman. Look at Lab McConkey. So the reputation is going up. I just think you got to be able to get those top receivers.
Yeah, as Patrick says here, his position group that Georgia has to hit and has to get right is receivers as well. And obviously, I think we're unanimous here. Honestly, if I want to be a devil's advocate, I think you need to get the quarterback right too, and even the running backs, because while I'm here, I will say running backs because of this. You get 2 running backs in Branson Robinson, Andrew Paul, that are really good, but you're about to lose 2 more. So getting the right ones are key. Now, the thing about it is, you look at at least the top 4, in my opinion, where you look at Justice Haynes, Reuben Owens, Richard Young, Traylon Webb. Those are 4 of the top. You have to get 2 of them. Now, the key is, and this is why you got to get it right, which 2? If I had my way, give me Justice, give me Reuben Owens. Give me those 2. But is there a name maybe we're not thinking about right now that could fall, that could be under the radar, that we like to say, that could come out of nowhere and just blow the hell up? Could you see Georgia take 3 running backs? We typically see 2, but could you see 3? Because keep in mind, you do have Dejon Edwards, that if he doesn't feel like he's getting enough playing time, either he knows to wait his turn or he leaves and goes somewhere where he can go get playing time. So you have to keep that in mind. Could we see 3 running backs? It very well could.
It wouldn't surprise me, because, like you said, if Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton both exit for the NFL after, this next season, you're left with Dejon Edwards, Branson Robinson, and who am I forgetting? Andrew Paul. That's 3 running backs. I don't think Georgia's going to go into a season with 3 running backs.
No,
they want
Kirby's
at least
proven
5.
that you go with 5.
Yes, you go with 5. So it wouldn't surprise me if they take a third one and go with 6. I think it all depends on, what are the expectations of those guys? Are they all 3 coming in here expecting to play right away, or are 2 of them, expecting to sit, or
obviously Kirby's shown his willingness to rotate backs almost too much for my liking, but it works. Thing about that is this: you look at the niche, the niches that these guys have. Dejon comes in understanding that he just waits his turn and gets reps when he gets reps, but he's kind of been patient waiting his turn. At some point, it's going to pay off for the man. You see what happens with Brian Robinson last year, right? Sits there in Alabama, pays off, right? Just sits there patiently, boom, time pays off. Dejon could have the same result, but at the same time, you still need to hit those backs, man.
James Cook, another example.
Kirby prides himself on the RBU, but at the same time, trying to, expand out, right, and try to branch out and become a more potent offense. And look, that's what we need to do. But at the same time, you just won a national title with an elite defense and an efficient offense. So just make your efficient offense and be okay. And it shows you that's the recipe that you can win with, right? It can be better, but at the same time, it's more than sufficient. We saw it.
And if I could just add, Robert, real quick, talking about this, I think, the formula that Georgia, going off Patrick's point of receivers on O and secondary on D, my biggest, concern, and I think the biggest hit point that Georgia needs to hit on out of this recruiting class and the next one is probably defensive line. Talking about hit rate alone, you got all the 5 stars and 4 stars you want. Now, can you develop them and get them to that next level where, Georgia's secondary was not the greatest we've seen under Kirby Smart in his tenure yet. But it was good enough because you had the defensive line to go pressure Bryce Young every snap. So, for me, it's receivers on offense and defensive line on defense because the fact your formula for winning the national championship was having that strong front seven.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right? I think secondary is probably the biggest thing here, but at the same time, looking at linebackers, right? Obviously, I feel like we're set with where we are at linebackers, but it never hurts to get the right guys to come in. And if there's a guy, in this class, I think you go for him. Obviously looking at what we've got with Xavier and Smile Mondon, looking at that right there, I think we're set for several years there, right? And currently the 2023 class, we do not have a linebacker committed. I expect us to take at least one, whether it be outside or middle, right? But in my opinion, I think Kirby's not going to sit there and just pick some guy just to fill a number or a quota. Mm-hmm. He's going to get impact players there. If it's a position that we don't necessarily need, it's kind of a luxury to have, but Kirby will do that, right? He'll pick a guy to bring them in as a true luxury, but be a impact player. I could see that happen there. But at the same time, I think with you right there, secondary is probably the biggest factor here for me. But obviously, look, there's a lot of time left up until, early signing day, national signing day, right? Like kids still from 2022 class still ain't committed yet. So it never stops is what I'm saying. But there's just a lot of talent in this 2023 class. I think it's a loaded class. And honestly, me being from North Carolina and, looking at it right here, the state of Georgia is littered with 5 stars, 4 stars, what it seems like. Holy cow. It is insane. And really elite talent, right? And kind of going back to the beginning of the show, guys, the camp in Atlanta yesterday kind of proves the point. There's a lot of good talent there just around, just in the states of Georgia, Alabama, even Mississippi, the Carolinas, right? Tons of talent in the Southeast. So, Georgia's got pickings what they want. They got picked at what they want. But at the end of the day, they got to make it happen. With that note right here, though, guys, we're going to wrap it up for today. Stick around for a little Q&A. With that being said, though, Harrison just released obviously revamping your podcast here. You got a co-host and everything. I'll let you talk a little bit about that. Let the folks know what's going on with that, man.
So, as you can see, sorry about the background, guys. I'm still trying to get a quote-unquote studio set up. As Robert well knows, I got to get me a background that looks a little bit more better than just, a room. So I'm getting that all set up. That's why I got a little banner behind me, a little, not green screen, a virtual green screen, as I think, virtual background. So, and I got to get a bigger desk so my microphone, you don't see the back of this microphone. But yes, y'all can go find us, the Top Dog Talk podcast, coming at you every week. We are in the process of getting ready for a live show similar to what Robert does now. So you can go find us on all of your major platforms. You can find me on Twitter at TopDog_blogs. I'm Harrison Reno. Robert, I do want to say thank you for joining, for letting me come on today. And I do look forward to having you on the Top Dog Talk podcast once again later, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Hey, we can always work on that. No doubt about it. So make sure you go follow the podcast. Really good content there. Obviously with Dan and Harrison there too. With that being said, have a great day and we will see you next time. Go Dogs. And for Q&A, don't have that many people in here, but obviously feel free to, if you have questions, if you have comments, obviously about, look, there's several topics here. If you want to call it the current state of Georgia program, obviously with the new offensive line coach, the Under Armour camp, kind of hit those topics there, Patrick. I know you said you were late to the party. So if you're still here, if you have any questions, need a recap, let us know in the comments. A la the Bones Brigade, by the way, guys. Great chat. I love our little chat here. Kind of dead today. I think a lot of it is probably the Showtime change, but it's okay. It's okay. But to kind of continue on this real fast. Well, maybe let folks ask questions or whatever. Looking at North Carolina, right? We're both from North Carolina. With that being said, there's so much talent around here, man. It's not even just a 23 class, but you've got what, 24, 25. I've went on record talking about a couple kids from Grimsley that it's just insane. So with that being said, Harrison, what are your thoughts on the state of North Carolina, my man?
I think it's a state on the rise, as people would say. I mean, there is a lot of talent here, and I think it's been a state that's been slept on for a long time. When talking about football, obviously in basketball, I think that's been like the premier sport for high school in the state of North Carolina. I don't know if the tide's changing or not. I don't keep up with the recruiting of college basketball as much.
Basketball seems to be kind of expanding out a little bit more, but it's still a basketball state, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think football's on the rise, as kind of we mentioned. There's obviously the western part of the state is probably the most popular when it comes to getting these high value targets, these top targets in the state of North Carolina. But I think both sides of the state are expanding and are getting more and more recognitions from the college level.
Yeah, no, obviously from a high school standpoint, I do think you're looking at football as being really a sport that's being on the rise, like you said, because you're looking at, like I said, KJ being over there near you, Jamal near me, looking at guys like Barry Pate's another example, real speedster. Shout out to Barry, going to James Madison, going to take a visit here soon. You've got kids like local kids around me, right? Henry Harden is another one. Center, he plays for Grimsley. Looking at that right there, and then you look at 24, man. Look, I'm telling you right now, if I had my way, if I had my way, I would get Coach McClendon up here to Grimsley, because there's two receivers that I truly like to see on Georgia's own roster. I would love to see it, and that's Terrell Anderson and Alex Taylor, both guys 6'2", 6'3". Terrell really physical after the catch, runs mean as shit, and then Alex Taylor's just kind of the same way. Elusively fast too. Like both guys are quicker than they appear. Alex has really great hands, really crisp route running. I think he can still get a little bit better, obviously compared to, what you'll get developed like in college, but where it's at now. Oh yeah. Yeah. I love both of those guys on the roster. And then you got like just in Burlington, right past Greensboro, Jonathan Paylor, number 8 overall, according to the top 24/7. And then, if we want to look at Charlotte, Harrison, you got, you're looking at Jaden Davis, number 1 overall player in the the top 24/7 there for 2024. So, look, North Carolina, man, they're getting loaded, right? And just in 23, Christian Hamilton, Rico Walker, Noah Rogers. Some of these. Now, obviously, if you're a Georgia fan listening to this, you might not know those names. But I'm sure Georgia's recruiting those guys to what level, I don't know. But I do think that you see those guys, in the future, right? North Carolina kids, if you pull in the state, recruit the state hard. BMAC has had a ton of success in North Carolina. Coach Scott's from North Carolina. Like, get these guys in this state and recruit some of these guys and give Mac Brown a time to pull, you know what I mean? Like, make it a problem. Right. And the talent level here is going to do that. It's going to do that. And then, like, obviously, I don't know if you're familiar with it, Harrison, but Bryce Davis, kid from Grimsley, right? Him and Andre Hill. I can't wait to see I cannot wait to see Grimsley this year, man. It is insane. Bryce Davis is like a 6'4", 220 rising sophomore, right? Ooh. Fun fact, gets an offer from Vanderbilt based off his JV tape. So if that tells you anything, come on. Like, and that's just a rising sophomore. Andre Hill, it's like 6'3" or 6'4", 330. So you're putting that with Jamal. You're putting that with Jamal. Like Grimsley is going to be a school that I think Coach Scott, Coach Smart is going to be coming on a yearly basis at this point. There's even kids in middle school that are going to be starting as freshmen, sophomores. Like it's going to be insane. It's what's going to be fun to do. Look, I want Greensboro to be what Charlotte is and what it was, because when it, for me being young, like me being a little bit older, when I was in my teens, and growing up, Charlotte was the spot. And that was like the only spot, what felt like, right? Now, Greensboro could be that. Like Dudley just come off a state title. You got schools like Grimsley. You got Grimsley just won it a couple years ago. Then you got East Forsyth, Glenn putting out kids, looking at Dudley with Miles Murphy, Peyton Page. There's just so many damn kids coming from North Carolina. Like, they're staying close, right? You're seeing guys stay at Clemson, North Carolina. Mac Brown's done a great job, locking down the state. But you look at guys like Miles Murphy that goes to North Carolina and going to be impact players. Travis Shaw, at one point, I think number 4 overall in the composite, commits to North Carolina over Georgia.
What is he, like the second best lineman overall?
Like that. At one point, I know he was 4th overall. I haven't looked at the rankings recently, but it was still a 5-star player, in the state going, staying home. Georgia's got to work on that, right? Mac Brown has made North Carolina a place for elite talent in the state to stay home and play for. What was that, sir?
It's something to be proud of now. I mean, they lost. It had a down year this year, but they are still building. It's much better than what they were when he first went to North Carolina. So that's the whole part of how long he's there. I don't know, and who they hire after him, I don't know. Probably promote from within, depending on how his tenure ends. But UNC is a program on the rise. I'm not buying the whole they're going to make the playoffs or be in contention for the playoffs. I don't think that's where they're at. I think they're more akin to an 8-4 type year, maybe 9 wins, 10 wins every 3 years, depending on what they recruit. So if they're recruiting at top 10 level, 10 wins a year, 9 wins a year, second in the ACC, third in the ACC, top 4, top 3, they should be happy about that. They should be fine with it. But if they keep recruiting at a high level and maybe start breaking into the top 5, maybe you do see them go compete with Clemson for the ACC title a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. Within the state here, though, right? You've got Duke loses. Duke lets go of Coach Cutcliffe. Sorry, loses Coach Cutcliffe. Pick up Mike Elko, right? And that's DC from Texas A&M. That's a wild card school right now, right? That could be a pendulum swinger depending on how he does. But then you also look at Wake Forest. Wake Forest was a surprising team with claws in there. So now whether that's sustainable, I don't know. But and this is what Georgia has to look at, because, like I said, as the talent increases, if these schools are getting better, that's only going to make it harder for a team like Georgia to come in and pull the elite kids, right? Especially if Mac Brown's in Chapel Hill. And if, Mike Elko turns out to do something well, who knows, Duke might be able to, to get better there. I mean, look, they got one of my guys, Michael Wall. I can't wait to see what he does there. Kind of a smaller, shifty kind of receiver. I think he'll do well there. We'll see what happens. I just can't wait to look for it. I can't wait to see what he does there. But look, it's kind of like Florida, right? When the big 3 are down, it's so much easier for Georgia to go in there and pick the best talent. It's the same way, and the same way applies with North Carolina. Generally you have to worry about North Carolina, but as soon as Mac Brown came back, it was like, well, shit, here we go. Because, I mean, let's be honest, Larry Fedora wasn't keeping these kids around. He just wasn't, you know what I mean? So, at that time you look back at, Mark Richt and early Kirby Smart could go back in there and pull who they wanted, right? You're not going to see that now with Mac Brown there. Now, afterwards, that's TBD. But for right now, I'm looking at it like you're going to be in a dogfight, right? Like Jamal you could see Jamal go to North Carolina. Who knows, right? Play with Travis. I mean, I think Georgia's in a good spot there for damn sure, but you never know, right? I think for like an elite kid, Noah Rogers could be. Noah Rogers isn't a good example. I think you can see him honestly look at NC State. Now, at the end of the day, you look at teams like Bama and Georgia that close, that focus on closing in these recruitments. Things could change. But if, obviously this is why you can't be the casualist and look at, crystal balls, because it don't mean shit right now. But you have to kind of be wary of it. Like, it can happen. Travis Shaw staying home. Like, I'd love to see what Travis Shaw brought to Georgia, but he's going to be at Chapel Hill. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things. You know what I mean? I think as a state, North Carolina is rising, but Georgia's got to get better at recruiting the state, and I expect them to. Whether it be Coach Scott, Coach McClendon, somebody's got to get that success in there. And I think, in my opinion, honestly, I think you give me Coach Kirby, give me Coach McClendon, we'll be straight. We'll be straight.
And something I saw yesterday, and it was kind of just, further insight into how Georgia was recruiting through these first, I think it was 5 years under Coach Smart. I saw a statistic, over 80 players from Georgia's championship roster were from the state of Georgia alone. I don't remember who was second highest, and I'm gonna try and pull that number back up. Wouldn't be shocked if it was Florida. I think it probably was Florida. But it was just a really good insight into, what Georgia was doing numbers wise, recruiting their own state. It is ridiculous when you can get 80 players from a championship roster from your own state. And I think that's why Georgia's in such a good position for the long haul, is because, the state of Georgia, talking about football states on the rise, that's been a state that's been, improving high school wise, talent wise over these last, 10, 20 years. You've been getting more and more talent out of this Peach State high school wise. So, I'm really excited to see how the state of North Carolina and the state of Georgia continue to be the building ground for some of these programs. Georgia is going to recruit the Peach State really well. The second state they're going to recruit really well is Florida, because it's right there. Now, talking about guys who could potentially impact how Georgia can go in and pick guys, how is Mario Cristobal and Billy Napier going to do in the Sunshine State? Obviously, both guys are said to have the ability to recruit and attract guys to stay home. Obviously, I think Cristobal is more of a South Florida guy. I think that's where he's going to be getting a lot of his talent, and a lot of his expertise is in that region. So how is Georgia going to fare with that? How are they going to, keep alive their pipeline with IMG Academy? Obviously, you lost Kamari Wilson to the Florida Gators and Billy Napier on signing day, and probably the most shocking of signings from that signing day, the most eventful.
Definitely one of the most unexpected.
That was crazy. No one saw it coming. I think the only people, I don't even know if Florida saw it coming. Obviously, they knew a long time before anyone else did about what he was going to do. But, how does Georgia keep that ING Academy link alive? And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but look at Clemson. Clemson had a down year this past year, and they
lost all their IMG.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is, almost everyone from IMG decommitted from Clemson. So, I think that bodes in Georgia's favor. If Clemson's on the downfall, which they may well be, we won't know until this year. If they have another 8 to 9 win season, or another unimpressive 10-win season when their offense is crap in the bed, that helps lift the pressure off of being able to recruit elite talent out of North Carolina. The state to the north of South Carolina, recruiting South Carolina, recruiting Florida. Let's see how the rest of college football shakes out, because here's a good question for you, Robert. What is your, let's put yourselves in the shoes of Georgia coach of Kirby Smart. Maybe what's your biggest scare? Is it the rise of the Florida schools, being Miami and Florida State, going back to national prominence? Or is it the Texas A&M, and Texas rising to prominence once again and being back in national title contention?
Well, if I had to choose, I think you look based off my thought process right here. I'm with Tristan here from Twitch. Georgia's going to be right back with the national titles. Yeah, I'm with you there. With that being said, right there, I think you have to you have to be looking at all of them as threats. But I think the rise of the big three could be more of a concern because it's closer to home.
Mhm.
And with the current landscape with NIL, with obviously college football, like keeping kids home is key because you look at guys, that Georgia has not recruited and missed on, a la Will Anderson. You know, in the state of Georgia, they go elsewhere and they have just blow the hell up. Focusing on that right there, focusing close to home. When you have to worry about kids from Texas and things like that, like then you have to worry about the portal because they can easily just go the hell home, right?
Not to
Like,
mention the title scene changes,
yeah,
nationally.
exactly. So Tristan also says he does believe that we're going to have a challenge with Florida and teams like that. And Tristan, please kind of elaborate a little bit more. But I'm going to assume you're talking about with recruiting or actually possibly actual on the field production. We'll do both while we wait, though. From a recruiting standpoint, Florida is interesting, but I think the biggest one to worry about is Miami,
Oh, I'm
especially right now.
100% in the boat with you on that one. Florida State, Florida State has potential to get our attention, but not with their current state right now.
Boy,
I'm
they're
not
they're
a
still
big
they're
fan.
still on nuclear meltdown alert from damn losing
Well, I mean,
Travis
let's be
Hunter.
fair. Auburn has taken over the Twitter space comedy world. Auburn, well, actually, no, not all. I'm sorry, Auburn fans. Arkansas fans, you have taken over the Auburn Twitter
Give
space
those guys those
world
credit.
of trolling them. So, that was really funny. Obviously, Florida State fans were really salty about that one. But, I don't think Mike Norvell's the guy at Florida State. I've watched them. They looked decent against Notre Dame in the season opener. I think that was the season opener. But then they fell off. They were inconsistent. Quarterback was a problem. I wasn't impressed by any of those guys, to be frank with you. But I don't know how they should have hung around with Notre Dame for as long as they did. But Notre Dame's the gift that keeps on giving in close games, I will say.
And Tristan clarified production on the field. Honestly, Tristan, we'll see what happens this year. But as it stands right now, my Gator hater in me tells me I'm not worried about them until proven otherwise. I can't be. I can't mislead you here. Like Florida is going to be a team rebuilding program. They're
It's
not in a
it's it's
position
a
to reload, as people want to say. They're not. They're in a
it's a
rebuild.
3-year job, 3 to 4 year job with them. And
Look,
here's the
and
biggest
it's
problem for
all a
Napier.
testament. It's all a testament to Mullen the Clown. We know it. Look, it's just the way it is. The fact that his carelessness with recruiting set that program back each year multiple times. Like if he was there an extra year, basically put them back a couple years. That's just the way it does with recruiting. His lack and carelessness with it is setting them back where they're going to have legitimately top 10 at least top 10 classes consistently to even get back to a point where they were when Mullen came in, which is still barely close to fighting with you know what I mean? Like it's just not in a good spot. They're going to have just a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
And you look at
So
Mullen's success, it was, and I'm sorry, but, everyone likes to talk about Kirby winning with Rick's players until now. But you look at Florida, their biggest success was in the years directly after McElwain was fired. And maybe you can attribute much of McElwain's success to, you know, Will Muschamp's players that he recruited, because Will Muschamp is a tenacious recruiter. Dude can coach and dude can recruit. What a better, combination for a member of Georgia staff. He can coach and he can recruit at a high level. So, Mullen, after the well ran dry of top, I don't remember exactly what kind of recruiting classes they were pulling in with McElwain and Muschamp, but I'm assuming it was top 10, top 5. After the well ran
I think it
dry
was like
with
top 10 to
those
top 15, I think.
top 10, top 15, after
I
the,
think. I'd have to look.
and I'm sure there was a lot of diamonds in the rough with those guys. But once that well run drive went dry and it was all players that Mullen and his staff were having to evaluate, you saw what happened. They had one good season where they beat Georgia, 2020 being it. Granted, it was a COVID year, and Georgia's fans will tell you, oh, well, we had a crap load of injuries. Well, if Georgia can use that excuse for last year, then Alabama can use it for this year. So, it's a double-edged sword in that sense. But, with Napier, his biggest problem, his biggest concern right now is I need to establish relationships with every high school head coach down in Florida. I need to be making a good impression with these guys because if I don't, they're not going to help me out.
No, look, Mullen couldn't touch. He couldn't even get close to the gate of IMG Academy. They just wouldn't do with it. And honestly, in just a matter of a month or two, you're looking at Napier doing more with, you know what I mean? Like just doing more in regards to recruiting anyways, but that's what he can do right now. Look, he's already got them on the right track in regards to recruiting. And if he gets the recruiting on board, I think it kind of fits like a puzzle where the recruiting comes in line, then you start to see production on the field and all this other stuff could fall. But Tristan also says, he hasn't been worried about Florida about Florida till 2017. I think we lost him in 2020, and that's when they had that generational offense. Also, he said he was surprised to see Muschamp on our sideline. He don't even know how we got him. Yeah, I think it was a culmination of things, Tristan. I think the buyout from South Carolina, when he got bought out and got relieved of duties there, he has a son that's currently a walk-on on this team, family here, got a kid in high school. And look, he played here, right? So all of those things kind of factored into him coming in. And obviously, he's gotten, promotions in regards to, coming in as an analyst all the way up to what now co-DC and safeties coach in a matter of 2 years, if that. So it's like, yeah. So I mean, in that regards, like, I wasn't really surprised that he was on the sideline. It was a good thing because you're getting that. In my opinion, you're getting a great defensive mind to help out with another defensive mind that's great, and that's Kirby Smart. And Kirby's arguably one of the best defensive coordinators in the whole 20th century, 21st century. It's my fault, shit. So look at that right there. That just what makes that. Honestly, think about it. That's what makes our defense that much more scary is the culmination of intelligence and experience. That's one of my reasons, right?
And talking about Florida staff real quick because I just looked it up. Now here's the thing with when I look at the staff, there are some household names. I mean, none other than Corey Raymond. That was a huge hire for Florida. I think look as far as Kamari Wilson and flipping, or as people might say, flipping to Florida on signing day.
That was the piece that got him to flip, in my opinion.
Yeah, and rightfully so. He's a dang good defensive back coach. One of the best in the country, I would say, right up there in this generation with Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp. He's right up there. Rob Sale, he's I would say he's a household name if you follow college football closer. I think he was most recently with the Giants as the offensive line coach. Obviously, that line's offensive line unit isn't the best, but he did help develop Andrew Thomas into having his best year in the league. But then I look at the rest of these guys, Jay Bateman coming over from North Carolina. So there's 3 guys that I know off the top of my head that look like guys that have Power 5 experience. The rest, and I haven't checked all through the rest of them, there's questions as how will they translate from coming over from that Louisiana staff. What you did at Louisiana most likely is not going to translate into success in the SEC. And I think that's where he needs to be careful. You need to make sure you stock your staff with not only proven commodities in the SEC, but also some guys who are young and up-and-comers who may not have that SEC experience, but can coach and develop. And I think you see it with Georgia's hires. Fran Brown. I saw someone complaining on Twitter today that Georgia is not making good hires this offseason. And they must have not have done their research. Because Fran Brown, yes, he was at Rutgers, and yes, Rutgers isn't good. Yes, North Carolina's offensive line was not good this past year, but they don't have the talent that Georgia has. So, there is history with all these guys that Georgia's hired. The outside linebackers coach, I'm not going to say his name because I'm not going to try and butcher that out of respect.
Uzo
Duribe. That's perfect. On the money. But, he's an up-and-comer. Great hire. Stacey Steros, I got to see what he does in his second stint here. Fran Fran Brown, obviously with Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp, there's no way you don't hit at defensive back. So, with Florida tying up this tangent, I got to see how they do, how they translate over from a non-Power 5 into an SEC school.
Also thinking about this right here as I read this question out here, we'll answer Tristan's question again. So he wants to know thoughts on Stetson Bennett being the one to finally be the one missing piece of this past season national championship win. My thoughts about it with this, it's kind of one of those things where, your viewpoint is going to be different. Most people are going to say that the defense won this championship, and the argument is there. But at the end of the day, looking at the quarterback controversy that came with this season, Tristan, in my opinion, I think you look at it as Stetson being efficient enough. There were times, there were games where he was careless with the ball. It started to show, and it concerned me, especially leading into our showdown with Alabama in the SEC championship game, which then obviously the SEC championship game was kind of a dud, and you get worries about. If we make it past, in the playoffs, right? We see them again in the playoffs. What does that mean? But, the defense, in my opinion, the defense did, I would say, probably 80%. But you have to understand that 20%, if you want to go 80-20, which is kind of extreme, that 20%, the offense was extremely efficient. Now, the defense played a part in that. But at the same time, you look at the quarterback, man, it feels so old school SEC-esque. Right, Tristan, to where you would never think it would work in this day and age, but it turns out to actually work. And then he also says he has doubts the whole season, but at the end of the day, Stetson did it. Yeah, look, the team did it. You know what I mean? Stetson made throws. Obviously he made mistakes. Hell, in the championship game alone, Channing Tindall made a mistake. But guess what? Redeemed himself and fixed it the next play. You go out there and you play again. Right? You look at the fumble that he had in the national title game. How many quarterbacks would kind of fell apart at that point? Stetson comes back out there, redeems himself, coach trust in him. Next thing you know, he throws the bomb to A.D. Mitchell. We take the lead. We never lose it, right? Shit like that is what matters. And the fact that you saw how we played through the entire season, right? I think you look at it as being a statement for the entirety of the season, right? Starters playing in the fourth quarter of games when they're already put away. Well, that tells me there was something there that they were trying to prove. They were proving something. You're up by 30 points, yet your defense is still out there sitting there trying to stop Kentucky from scoring, and they score with 3 seconds and they're pissed the fuck off. You're proving something at that point. You're trying to do something more than just win games. You're trying to make a statement. You're trying to humiliate every opponent, trying to shut them out, every opponent, not score a touchdown every game. Shit like that. And that's what matters. And it's what leads to a championship mentality, which is why you saw Georgia win the national title.
Regarding Stetson, and, there are his haters. They are out there still, believe it or not. But there's a difference between hating on the kid and supporting the kid, but also having your doubts. And as a fan, you're going to have your doubts because the last 7 times, or prior to January 11th, the past 7 times you've lost to Alabama. You're 0-7 against Alabama. And most of the games you've lost, because of one possession where either the defense doesn't get a stop or the offense does not score when you need them to. So, rightfully so, you're going to have doubts. And obviously after the SEC championship game, you're going to have even more doubts about whether or not Stetson Bennett was going to be the guy to do it. But he ended up doing it. And he did it in tremendous fashion. Now, the Alabama game itself, it was not pretty offensively from Georgia. The only thing that was pretty about that game was, the ending. Georgia had the fourth quarter that they never, ever could have had, that they never had, in 2018, in 2017. Georgia put up more points in that fourth quarter than they did in the last 2 fourth quarters combined, I'm pretty sure, that they played Alabama, which is ridiculous. But, look at Bennett's play overall in the playoffs. Dude had 5 passing touchdowns, had over 500 yards passing in both combined in both games, and did it without an interception. Now, granted, he was sacked 5 times. How much of that was his fault? There's a few times where he probably could have got the ball away when scrambling out against Alabama. But hindsight's 20/20. So he did enough to win the game. He's earned everyone's respect at this point. And, do I expect people to doubt him again if Georgia faces Alabama like I think they will in Atlanta once again? Yes, there will be doubters. But I think Stetson has proven he's good enough to help you win a championship. By no means did he carry that team, but that offense didn't carry the team. JT Daniels, whoever on that roster, would not have carried that team. That was a defensive football team, guys. And look, that's an all-time defense. That's right up there with any defense in the last 20 years, talent-wise, and the way they played. They played in a pass-happy decade, era of college football, and they won.
Look at it this way. So, obviously, Tristan says the pretty thing to him is that Achilles sealed Alabama's fate. We talk about the SEC, right? And I want to show you an overlay real fast, Harrison. I want to sit here and talk about this before we wrap it up. So, just saw this, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So, obviously, with the SEC, we're looking at some point in the near future, Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC. Let's talk about this. How long until Oklahoma or Texas wins a title based off of the new SEC here?
Now, here's my thing. Because you look at the two programs, what program is in a better position as of today? Texas comes off a 5-7 season. Oklahoma, what? They had a 10-11 win season, but they lost Lincoln Riley and pretty much their whole offense. So they're both in bad spots. Not saying they're going to go play in the toilet bowl. I mean, Texas may play in the toilet bowl depending on what happens. I think, they're always a subject of overhyping. I know very well that with some of my family being Texas fans, there is, a lot of overhyping there. So, I don't know what Texas has. I don't know what Quinn Ewers is going to be. They always tend to hype up these freshman quarterbacks, and they never pan out like they think they would. So, who's in a better position? I don't think OU and Texas are where they thought they would be this year at this point.
No. So, Tristan also says that Texas, he thinks, will be 15 years, and then Oklahoma 25. Now, I'd love to hear an explanation there because I think currently Oklahoma's in a better chance to win now, for sure, than Texas. But at the same time, as whenever they come in, things can be a lot different. But, look, I think, honestly, I think you look at any team in the SEC, once Nick Saban retires, because it's imminent, but it's just a matter of when. Once that happens, college football is going to change. It's just going to change.
It's about
what does that mean for Georgia? What does that mean for Texas and Oklahoma? What does that mean for Michigan and Ohio State? What does it mean for Clemson, right? All these teams. What does it mean for Cincinnati?
What does it mean for Dabo Swinney's employment? Alabama grad.
So there's so many. We thought this year's coaching carousel was different and just wild. I could only imagine the avalanche that would be when Nick Saban has to be replaced, whether obviously via retirement, but you get what I mean.
Talk about the one time that everyone's going to want to cover Alabama football. Talk about
that one time.
The one time. I mean, what a time it would be to be an Alabama insider.
I mean, as Future says, man, what a time to be alive. That's Drake. Sorry, my fault. I'm terrible today.
Quoting some lyrics.
At the end of the day, right, whenever this happens, all of college football, especially the elite programs in college football, are hoping for an NFL coach to come down and be the next guy. Because you look, I understand Georgia. There's a good shot that Kirby Smart's going to stick around at Georgia. But you best believe me, Alabama's going to do their diligence by calling them and trying to talk to them and paying them whatever the fuck they need or whatever is needed to try to get them here. Same with Dabo. Same with Dabo Swinney.
Money talks, guys. Money talks.
Jimbo Fisher. Hey, look, you think $100 million? You think $100 million is much? With what they're, listen, Bama fans are annoying at times, right? But they have a reason to be, right? They win title after title after title. They have a reason to be annoying. You think it's bad now. Wait till their team, if they start to lose a lot. And they go back to the 90s Bama, like the rough Bamas right before Saban. That Bama. Ooh.
Well,
Oof.
honestly, is Lane Kiffin a candidate at some point with what he's doing at Ole
Oh
Miss?
my God. I'd
I
be
mean,
scared for Lane
is
Kiffin
he
to go
getting
there.
a premier
Jesus.
job? I mean, the premier job, I would say at this point, because Alabama's contending for titles every year at this point. That's one heck of a coaching search. What if Sark turns it around at Texas? They might give him a call. Because I mean, I think Texas is at this point in time, the bureaucracy in that program and in that university is almost, if not worse, than when Nick Saban took it over at Alabama. From a
Yeah.
donor perspective.
So Tristan's stepbrother's an Alabama fan. He gives me shit for the past 4 years, so I finally got a shit talk him last night. Make him pay. Make him pay. Keep the receipts. Make him pay. Act like you've been there before. Nah, fam. I haven't been in my lifetime. So you know what? Fuck that statement. I'm going to do me. That's what you tell them. And then you proceed to talk shit. Okay? I need you to do that. Because that's what's going to happen. Look, I'm not one to sit here and keep boasting about it. But I'm not going to be mad at any Georgia fan that's continuing to do so still. I'm not going to be mad about that.
Oh, Georgia fans, you got until January, 10th or 11th next year to say you are the defending national champions.
Unless you win it again. Reigning, defending. Yeah. I'm not going to go into more detail there. Anyways, Harrison, great talking with you, sir, as always. Tristan, let's see. Listen, continue to talk shit to your stepbrother, please. If you need to, tell him to come my way. The NCDGD told you to keep talking your shit, okay? I need you to do that. Listen, on that note, though, guys, great show. Thanks, Brigade, for popping in. Also, before we leave, make sure to feel free to join our Discord or become a Patreon subscriber. Look, I talked about Jamal Jarrett earlier. There's a reason. You'll get a lot of that. You'll get a lot of NC North Carolina recruiting. Some things, obviously it's different stuff. Join over on the Patreon. Join the Discord. Check it out. Guys, you'll love it. It's a growing community. All football teams welcome. So if you're rewatching this, if you're a Bama fan, if you're a Clemson fan, Oklahoma, Texas fan, it does not fucking matter. Join the Discord. All teams are welcome. I'm not going to bite, I promise. Others might. I'm not going to. Look, Harrison, great talking as always, my man. We're going to wrap this thing up. I didn't realize we were an hour and a half, my man.
All good, man. It's pressure being on.
Absolutely. Listen, catch us Friday. Gonna have a good show there for you. Gonna be doing some names to know. You thought we talked about names to know today? Oh no. Looking forward to Juan getting me some info on some Georgia names to know within the state. Look, I'll be talking about my North Carolina guys. So looking forward to that. Tune in Friday. Tristan, if you're still here, everybody rewatching this, make sure to like, subscribe, follow wherever you listen or watch the show, by the way. Wherever you get your podcast, follow us, give us a follow, support it there. And with that note, though, go Dogs.